let's just dive right in. Have you ever gotten the feeling that something about our world is just off? It's kind of hard to put your finger on it. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a pretty unsettling argument from our source material about why that might be, and what it calls an engineered reality.
Yeah, that's the feeling exactly. It's like time is speeding up, people seem a little colder, and the whole world just feels like it's running on some kind of bizarre autopilot. It's this shared sense that things aren't quite lined up right, buzzing just under the surface.
So here's the big question we're looking at today. What if that weird, off feeling isn't just an accident of modern life? What if, as the source argues, it's actually the result of a deliberate process? Let's treat it like a mystery and go look for some clues.
And our first big clue comes from a pretty strange place, a behavioral science experiment from back in the 70s called Universe 25. Now, I know what you're thinking, mice? What do mice have to do with anything? But stick with me, because what happened in this experiment is absolutely key to understanding the whole argument.
I mean, the setup was basically a mouse paradise. They had everything they could ever want. Endless food and water, zero predators, perfect climate control, tons of space. It was a world with no problems, a life of just pure abundance. What could possibly go wrong, right? Well, as it turns out, everything. The experiment went through 4 clear phases. First, you get the population boom, just like you'd expect. But then, things got really dark. Growth just stopped. Society decayed into total chaos, and then the whole population went extinct. They collapsed right in the middle of their perfect world.
And the way it broke down was just horrifying. You had mothers who started neglecting and even attacking their own babies. Violence became the norm. And then this strange group emerged that the researchers called the beautiful ones. These were mice who would do nothing but eat, sleep, and groom themselves. They completely withdrew, refusing to mate or interact with anyone. The social dysfunction became so complete that it was passed down until no one even knew how to act like a mouse anymore.
And this slide just captures the whole terrifying paradox. The mice didn't die because they ran out of resources. They died from a complete collapse of meaning and social structure, surrounded by everything they physically needed to live. This is our clue. This is the pattern the source material wants us to really see.
So how in the world does a failed mouse utopia have anything to do with us? Well, this is where we get to the core theory from our source material, the idea of engineered reality. This is where we connect the dots from that experiment back to our own lives. Now here's the most important part to get. Engineered reality isn't about creating fake events. It's much, much more subtle than that. It's about taking things that are actually happening and then wrapping them in a very specific, carefully built story, a narrative that's designed to make you feel a certain way.
Think about this distinction here. Old school propaganda, that often depended on just making stuff up, right? Fake events you could maybe debunk, but engineered reality is different. It uses the undeniable truth of a real event as its foundation, and that makes the story built around it so much harder to question or even resist.
This quote from the source just hits the nail on the head. The crisis you see on the news is real. The scandal is real. The suffering is real. But the story you're told about why it's happening, or who's to blame, or how you're supposed to feel about it, that's the engineered part. That's the theater.
Okay, so if this is really happening, how would you even begin to spot it? Well, the source gives us a few pretty clear fingerprints to look for. Ways to see the pattern in all the noise of our daily information flood.
I mean, you've noticed this, right? All of a sudden, every single news channel, every celebrity on social media, every influencer seems to be talking about the exact same thing, using the exact same catchphrases, and pushing for the exact same emotional reaction. One week, there's a new thing to be terrified of, the next, a new person to be furious at. The source argues this isn't organic. It's a script.
Let's make this really practical. Just think of the last big news story you saw. Don't ask yourself if the event was true. Instead, ask yourself this. What emotion was this story designed to create in me? What feeling was it training me to have? That little shift in perspective is the first step to seeing the whole mechanism. Because the goal is to generate a predictable emotional output, like what you see here, fear, anger, hopelessness, or that intense us versus them tribal loyalty. And why? Because when you can control how a population feels, you can make a pretty good guess at how they're going to behave. Emotion becomes the lever for control. And this right here is the fundamental mechanic of how it all works.
Your attention is the gateway to your mind. If some outside force can consistently control what you look at, what you focus on, and what you ignore, it can slowly but surely shape your entire perception of reality, what's normal, what's important, and what's even true.
So, this all leads to the final and really the most important question. What can you actually do about it? The source doesn't just diagnose this huge problem, it also offers a clear way forward to start reclaiming your own mental space. And this isn't about being paranoid, it's just about being aware.
This quote really frames the choice perfectly. According to the source, there is no neutral ground here. You are either actively participating in creating your own view of reality, or you are passively accepting the one that's being fed to you. You're either writing the code, or the code is writing you.
Here are the 3 actionable steps it proposes. First, when you take in information, just pause and notice the emotion it's trying to generate. Is it making you angry? Afraid? Second, ask the most powerful question there is. Cui bono? Who benefits from me feeling and believing this particular narrative? And third, start treating your attention like a muscle that needs to be trained, consciously choosing where you point it.
And this really reframes the whole idea of freedom. The source argues that true freedom isn't just about having more choices at the end of the line. It's about having conscious control over the information and the influences that shape your mind before you even get to a choice. It's freedom of input, not just output. And that brings us right back around to where we started. As new technologies like AI promise to create this amazing new world of abundance, solving all our problems and making life easier, we have to ask the really hard question. Are we, just like the mice in Universe 25, so focused on building a perfect world that we're forgetting to maintain the meaning and the social bonds that actually make life worth living? Are we engineering our own paradise, and with it, our own collapse? That's something to think about.